You're listening to Health Coach Conversations, a podcast where our conversations help health coaches all around the world to level up our businesses and to get more clients.
I am Cathy Sikora, founder of the Health Coach Group and host of Health Coach Conversations. Today I am with Carly Pepin. She is an international speaker and consultant with specialized focus on human behavior. She shares the message that regardless of one's background, occupation, or origin, every individual encounters personal and professional challenges stemming from their own perceived flaws. Carly emphasizes that the key to living a fulfilling life lies in how you utilize and transform these stories. Having devoted her life to mastering the intricacies of human behavior, Carly empowers others to do the same. Through her expertise, she guides individuals in looking beyond the surface and delving into the core essence of their being. By uncovering and addressing the deeper issues that hinder personal growth, Carly enables her clients to design their lives with purpose rather than succumbing to a life dictated by duty. So, making your vocation your vacation, creating a business aligned with your purpose so you don't need a break. Is that possible? I already know the answer to that, but go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you already know the answer to that. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So whenever we're invested daily in doing things that we love, and we can see this, sometimes it's not currently involved with our work, right? But when we start to see the other things that we love doing every day, we don't feel like we need a vacation, right? The second that we feel like we need a vacation, I know that there's some level of burnout happening. There's some level of disconnect, and there's a lack of purpose in what you're doing. You're not feeling connected to it. And that's when the burnout occurs. So what we want to do is we really want to figure out what are the things that energize us and how can we actually create a life that revolves around that, right? And it's really quite interesting because it doesn't have to be like if you don't have your own business today, that's fine. You could start doing it in your current career today so that at least as you're transitioning, if you wanted to build a business, you're feeling inspired and fulfilled by the job that's giving you income to help you do so, which is also really inspiring.
Right. So the first step is figuring out what you enjoy doing, right? And what is meaningful to you?
Yes, that would be the first step. And it's actually something that's going to be evident in our day-to-day life. So if we look at how you spend your day, and I broke down your day for you step by step by step, there's going to be certain tasks that you dread. And you're like, oh, I have to do this. And you'll even feel your shoulders like you'll fall forward and be like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like, I have to do this. I need to do this. Right. And then there's the other things where it's like, oh, but I also get to do this today. And I'm really looking forward to this. Right. We want to pay attention to the things that energize you, the things that actually light you up. Those are things that energize you from within. That's inspiration from within. You don't need motivation to do those things. I don't need to remind you to do those things. No matter how your day is going, you're going to make sure those are included anyways because you love them so much. They're so inspiring to you. So first we want to take note and pay attention to what that looks like, right? It's also the thing that, this is fun too, we financially invest in the most, right? So if I broke down your bank account statement, I spend a significant quantity of my income on my personal development. It's really important to me, right? I spend more on my personal development than actually the home that I live in. And that's a choice that I make because I love it so much. So if you ask me what's purposeful to me, it's that, right? Where some people, they want this specific type of home. Like I have a friend who spends a significant quantity on her home. She loves living in a beautiful home that's meticulously designed, right? But that's part of her values and her beauty or purpose. And she works in the beauty industry, which makes sense, right? So she's kind of surrounded by what she loves all the time. So it's really paying attention to how you're investing your time, what energizes you, how you invest your money. And when you look at that, you're going to start to see a pattern in your day-to-day life on the things that you're doing most in there. Like it's just going to be a couple things. And that's actually your life purpose. Those are the things that are most purposeful to you. And then we ask the question, it's like, well, how can I actually create a business around that? What businesses exist? What businesses, maybe don't exist, but there's a need for it. And it's like, how can I provide those products and services to people? So once we figure that out, you kind of get to start asking that question. I think it's unrealistic sometimes to think we're going to get that answer right away. Once you get the data, you don't always get the answer right away, right? But sometimes it's like, okay, we put the puzzle pieces together. And I remember when I was putting puzzle pieces together, I was like, well, how do I get like paid to do what I love, right? How am I going to get paid to do what I love? And I kept asking the question over and over and over again until I started to get some insights, right? And then when I started to get some insights, I was like, that sounds awesome. I want to do that. I was like, I would love to do that. And there, my vacation is now my vocation, right? So when I take a vacation, which I kind of just technically took a vacation a little bit, my husband and I went to Canada, and it was really interesting because during our vacation, I didn't take time off in a sense, like we definitely spent time together and we got to enjoy the place and where we were. But during our free time, like I still kept my clients and I really enjoyed it. And during our free time, like we were studying and doing some fun stuff for our businesses and really just jamming out on it. Because if you ask us what we want to do, if we're just sitting there, we love it so much. Like, why wouldn't we do anything else? Like that is actually relaxing to us. And so even when I take a vacation, it's really not even like I'm going to take time off. It's like, okay, what else can I do that I love? And sometimes it's what someone else considers work because they don't love it to the degree that I do. They just have a different purpose. And so really paying attention to that, because then you're actually working, but you don't feel like you're working. You're enjoying yourself. You're lit up. You want to do it. You keep moving forward. And that's where you really build a significant quantity of momentum. Because imagine if you weren't creating that burnout and you didn't feel burnt out, like how much could you accomplish? A lot. Yeah.
Right. Almost everybody who's listening today is doing what is purposeful, or they want to do. They're on their way to doing what is purposeful for them. But a lot of them, when they first start out, and some of them even after they've been doing it for a long time, unfortunately, feel guilty for charging for it because they enjoy it so much and because it is meaningful to them and they feel guilty for charging. Do you have anything to say to address that?
Yes, I do, because I want everyone to charge for their services. It's really important. So when we think about charging, right, here's the interesting thing is that, and maybe some of you guys will notice this, especially individuals who have clients or customers that, when a customer pays you directly versus one that is someone else is paid, right? And I've seen this time and time again. It doesn't always happen, but here's what occurs. If someone else has paid for an individual to come to me, they are not as engaged as the person who has paid. And the reason why is because the person who is paid has put some leverage there. They've got something on the line. And so when they show up to my calls and they're serious. They come with an agenda. They come with specifics. They know exactly what they want. They know the outcome that they want. And they're like, Carly, help me get it done. And I'm like, okay, let's go. Right? The individuals that don't actually have that investment, they come sloppy. They're not prepared fully. They don't have quality questions. And it's quite interesting to see the difference between the two, right? Now, here's the fun part too that I want to add as well, just so you know. Sometimes you're going to get people who show up like crazy, even though they've gotten a gift. And the only reason is because their purpose is so connected to what you're doing that it's inevitable, right? But that's not always going to happen. Most of the time, if someone doesn't invest in the service, they aren't showing up for it. Think about services you've invested in. If you've invested a significant quantity of money, I don't know about you, but when I invest a lot of money in my coaching and consulting, I am dedicated. I'm making sure that I'm getting homework done. If anyone asks me to do homework, I make sure I get it done. I make sure that I get it done on time. I make sure I do the tasks in between. I make sure I'm clear when I get on a call of the questions that I want answered, right? And I make sure that I'm ready to listen, to focus, to actually take in the information. And it's not because someone didn't charge me or charge me low rates. It's because they charged me the value that it's actually worth, right? So that's really important to remember, is that if you're not charging value to your customer, you are actually debilitating them from receiving the services, planning, implementing, and making sure that they get it to the degree that they can. We do our customers a disservice by not charging them. They do not take the accountability and they do not actually put it through. And then you've just wasted both of your time. So when I say charge, I mean charge. It is incredibly important. The other dynamic between this as well is you want to check in to make sure You're not overcharging or undercharging. I actually like to do this with friends, thumbs up, thumbs down. It's actually super easy, where you go and you ask a friend to just help you reflect, because internally, you know how much you feel it's worth, right? So let's say you're starting at $50 an hour and you say, okay, is an hour worth $50 an hour? And I go thumbs down, right? Then my friend knows to go up. Okay, $100 an hour, thumbs down. And she keeps going, or he, until all of a sudden I'm like, no, 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 I can't go any more than that. Right. And I'm like, thumbs up, let's stop. And you can find your own internal point. That's really important, because if you overcharge someone, what you're going to do is you're going to feel guilt. You're going to feel guilt for overcharging them. And then every session that you have, guess what you're going to do? You're going to get on that call and you're going to go over time. You're going to try to over deliver because you just overcharge them. It's as simple as that. And then if you undercharge them, you get on that call and you resent being on the call. You resent it. You feel like they're wasting your time, your energy, and then you start to resent working with them. When you charge what you know that you're worth and you feel comfortable with, guess what? You get into fair exchange and you get on the call, you provide the service, you provide quality service, and you get off the call on time. And it's just simple. They don't owe you anything and you don't owe them anything. And it's like a beautiful place to be. So it's kind of like getting in fair equity and exchange, and also ensuring that you're holding them accountable to show up for each call. So 100% charge, charge.
So not only are you charging enough that you can stay in business and be around next time they need you, but also you could consider it as part of your coaching or your service, that, and part of your accountability, that they're paying for it, so they'll follow through, hopefully.
Absolutely. And a really cool note to this as well is when we do our price increases, like our nervous system can handle about 10% at a time, right? So whenever you're doing a price increase, it's like, we don't want to do 10% every month. That's going to make someone crazy, right? So they say every quarter we can handle like 10%. And someone told me this and I tested it. And every year I would watch, my car insurance company was the best example of this. Every year consistently, they go up 10%. And I started to notice they did. And I was like, I don't even care. I was like, it's amazing. I don't even care. It's not a big deal. I'm like totally willing to do it. Like, I'm like, okay, it's a little bit more. I'll figure it out. And so it's quite fascinating to watch, like the inner psychology of how that works. Mm-hmm. So we make sure when we're raising our prices, we don't go too high. Because if you all of a sudden go from, a certain number and double it, you're going to lose your customers. It's too much. They can't handle that. But if you do that 10% increase, that's really, really helpful. That keeps their nervous systems calm, and it'll also keep your nervous system calm, because that gives us that stable, steady growth where we're not trying to go for it's like the day trading. I don't know if you guys have ever hung out with day traders, but if you have, you're going to know what I'm saying. It's also a very emotionally volatile industry where they have extreme highs and hits and extreme lows and losses. Hits, losses, and their emotions go up and down with their financial gains and losses. We don't want to do that to ourselves. We want a business, stable, steady, long-term. That's another reason why I love the 10% increase, so that I don't have to go extreme high, extreme low, extreme high, extreme low. And it keeps me more balanced on the back end as well.
Your online presence matters. The Health Coach Group provides fully customized websites to showcase your wellness practice professionally, attract more clients, and stand out from the crowd. Visit thehealthcoachgroup.com to get started.
Let's talk about shifting your mindset and understanding the role that mindset plays in your financial destiny.
Yeah, so this is really cool, because when we talk about our life purpose, there are so many judgments that we place on ourselves, right? So you might place your judgment on yourself because you're like, oh, like, I don't save or invest to the same degree. Like, I remember when I first heard Warren Buffett talking about how when the market's doing really well, he goes to McDonald's, which he has ownership in, and he'll buy 2 sandwiches. And then when the market's doing bad, he only buys 1 sandwich at McDonald's that day. And I'm like, oh my God, I shop organic. And I'm not even close to Warren. I'm not even close to billionaire, right? And so here I am. I could sit here and judge myself and say that I'm not as good as him. I'm not as thrifty as him, all these components. The truth is I have a different purpose. I have a different priority. And my number one priority, I will not prioritize that level of finances over my health. Okay. I want to have financial independence and freedom, definitely. But will I prioritize it the way he has to that degree over health in the way he has? I can't do it. I really can't do it. And the level that I work out and exercise, I can't eat like that, or else I feel like I'm dying, right? And so we just have a different purpose. Does it mean that I can't not be wealthy? No, it means that it's going to be a different strategy for me than someone else. And I may not be doing it in the form that he's doing it. So it's really important to understand what's important to you, because then you're going to know what you prioritize. If your kids are more valuable to you, you're going to prioritize your kids. If we look at him as well, I mean, he's a great example. Like, I know that he's not even leaving his kids his fortune. He's going to be donating the majority of his fortune, and he's only leaving his children a very small amount. I think he just upped it to like 20 million or something. But we're talking like a billionaire only giving his kids like $20 million. That's nothing, right? So we see the priorities there. And it's really quite fascinating to see the priorities and values in someone. If you prioritize your kids, I have a client who's really doing like amazing things, really building the business, really working on growing it, expanding it, right? And this person doesn't have the highest value on finances. So how on earth are they creating so much wealth? Their highest values around their kids. They want to leave the legacy for their children, and they want to make sure that the kids have what they need and what they want to be able to live a life that is inspiring. If they want an education that's kind of out of the box, if they're doing, even having, I know parents of kids who are athletes and in sports and stuff, it's expensive, it's time consuming. If they have kids who do that, they want to make sure it's affordable. So that's their driver. When we think about our purpose, you want to find your driver. And then you want to see how building that wealth will assist that driver. Because if I can't see how building wealth is going to assist my health, then guess what? What's the point of doing it, right? What's the actual point of doing it? And so, other dynamics as well. So the more that you ask that question, if you don't have it as a highest value, if it's not the highest priority, which you'll know, because if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I'm already decamillionaire, centimillionaire, billionaire, it's a high priority for you. If you're not, and you haven't done it yet, and you haven't done what it takes to get there, figure out what your high priorities are and how it serves your priorities to actually build that wealth, right? And I think, when we talk about health, because I know it's nurses, doctors, health coaches, we all value health, right?
We all cringed when you told about Warren Buffett eating one or two McDonald's, and it's probably not a hamburger, it's probably a Big Mac or a...
It's like... No, it's the breakfast. It's the breakfast. It's what he eats it for breakfast, you guys. It's how he starts his day. I'm like,
burritos.
Yeah. I'm like, you don't start it with juice, or like, what? Okay, so for all of us health lovers, one thing that really inspired me, my husband told me this a couple months ago. He said, I believe it's LeBron James spends $1 million a year on his health. And I was like, you could do that? And I was like, what is he up to and who has he hired? And I'm like, this is what it's like to do the best of the best for your body, right? And it's like, so if I could build that level of financial independence where I have enough money coming in that I could spend $1 million on my health every year while making sure I have savings and investings and stability so I could do that for the rest of my life, that would be so inspiring to me. Like, genuinely. And so when I think about that, it's like, okay, now I'm more inspired to go out and create cash, right? So as we ask that question is, what do we truly prioritize and how will it serve us to actually create that income? And even saying this as well is when we find that job and it could be the job, it could be the business, but that thing you love to do every day and you can create income off of it. It's one of the greatest things you can do for your health because you're aligned, you're inspired, you're energized, right? You feel the most capable of overcoming your challenges. You start to say things like, I can do this, I can do this. And even though there's stressful situations that you encounter, it's not like a distress where you get burnt out. It's what we call eustress, where you're inspired to get to the other side. It's a different kind of stress and it doesn't impact you like a distress that really takes you down. So when we think about health as well, creating a life around your priorities, around things that are purposeful to you and creating an income off of it is one of the greatest things you can do for your health, because then you're giving yourself permission to feel that inspiration, that fuel from within, which again, we're getting rid of the distressful situations that burn us out and we're replacing it with the eustressful situations that build our self-worth, our confidence, our self-esteem, and we have the energy to overcome. We come up with solutions.
I'm thinking 4 years ago, it was my plan to retire and my daughter was going to take over my business. And I had a podcast interview. It might have been about 3.5 years ago that this happened, but I interviewed a guy that wrote Things That Matter or something like that. And I'm reading this book and I'm thinking, I don't want to retire because everything that you do when you're retired sounds horrible. And everything that I do every day sounds wonderful. And my daughter at the same time decided she didn't want to do what I do every day. She wanted to go and do research. And so we totally switched what we were doing. And it's funny how culture tells you that you need to do one thing, but you don't always have to do that. Do what you're drawn to and you'll be the happiest, right?
Yeah, I feel like you gave such an amazing example too, because culture also tells us we're supposed to retire, and I agree with you. Like if you line up what it looks like to retire, it sounds like my nightmare. That
Yeah.
does not sound like fun to me. Yeah, and it's like, so I can't do any of the things that I enjoy anymore. Like, why would I do that? Because society told me that I should take a break and I should stop, but I don't need a break. I don't need to stop. I'm not tired. I'm not worn out. I'm not burnt down. Like, and
Mhm.
same with you. It's like, you're not burnt out. You're not worn down. Like, you wake up every day and all these things like give you energy and fuel. And it's like bringing life to the body. Where
Right.
these other things, you felt it. You're like, this is like death to my body. I don't want to touch it.
Yeah,
And
I wake
so,
up in the
yeah.
morning and think, what do I get to do today instead of, oh, we've got mahjong at 10 o'clock. It's
Yeah. You're like, I don't want to do that. And it's not to say some people don't love it. Like I've met some people who are amazing in retirement, but most people, if you're not aware of what's important to you and you get into that retirement, you get into a funk and you start to see people. It's really fascinating. I also live in a bit of a retirement community as well. You see people deteriorate in a different way. And so you can see the individuals who most of the ones who are most inspired are like semi-retired. Like, so they're still doing what they love and they're like fitting in all this extra stuff, like travel and all these things that they hadn't done before. They're so busy. My mom and dad, they say it all the time. They're like, we're busier retired, they're semi-retired than we were when we were actually working all the time. And I was like, totally. But that's why they're lit up, right?
yeah,
And they're still engaged in doing things that they love. So it's making
energetic.
sure
Hmm.
energy, give you energy. Make sure you know what gives you energy. Make sure you know what feeds your soul. And don't ever give that up. Don't ever give that up. That's the light inside.
Yeah. Then there's other people that
Mhm.
they love being retired because they can come up with enough things on their own to do and love what they do. So everybody's different.
Yes.
It's just, yeah, it's what's right for you. And you go back to Warren Buffett. I grew up in Nebraska, so I know about Warren Buffett. His wife brought their kids up to disperse money. So they were brought up to give money to good causes, and he made money that they could give away. So I think it's kind of good when you got balance on both sides.
Totally.
That was his first wife. I'm not sure about his wife now.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's definitely that different dynamic.
Yeah. How does balancing our pride and shame play a role in leadership and growth? And I'm anxious to hear your answer to this one.
Yeah, so this one's really fun too. I mean, we all know about shame to a greater degree than we know about pride, right? So when we think about shame, shame can definitely prevent us from feeling deserving. So there are things that, and I know that there's things that I had done in the past that I had perceptions were so shameful that it's like you also think I'm not worthy of this. I'm not worthy of this lifestyle. I'm not worthy of wealth. I'm not worthy of having nice things because I'm a bad person because I did XYZ, right? So clearing that shame is really so important to give you permission to make sure that you're getting out in the world and you're creating a life that you love, right? You're creating the wealth that you love and you feel worthy of receiving it in every form, right? So we have wealth in financial form, but we also have wealth in many, many other forms. So we want to make sure that we're clearing that shame. And when we think about shame, shame only occurs when we perceive that there's more downsides than upsides to something that we've done. Now, the truth is that every event is neutral. until we place our opinion on it, until we place our personal view on it. We can look at, again, we're just use Warren Buffett in his sandwiches because we already started with him.
Use him. He's good.
Yeah,
you can't pick too much on him.
Totally. I love him. So we can look at him and his eating of McDonald's in the morning, right? So I have more downsides than upsides on that, right? But truthfully, it's a neutral event. It's neutral. There's plenty of people, and quite frankly, he's lived quite a long time. He's very old and he's totally fine. And he's still fully functioning and running and managing his business, right? We definitely have a different set of values. We're seeing inspiration fuel you from within and give you some great health, by the way. And so for me, probably still not going to do that, but just an example, like as health individuals and people who value health, we see that has more downsides than upsides, but truly it's a neutral event. And we can see that even though he eats that way, he's still quite healthy, right? His body is showing us he's quite healthy. He's quite old. His mind is quite engaged. So that's an interesting thing to see. We can also look at eating healthier, and we can look and we see more upsides than downsides, right? And so again, it's a neutral thing. There's both sides to that. It takes a long time. He's not having to spend the time and energy that we do on food prep, meal planning, like all these different things that I know go into it. I know that there's excessive quantities of education and study. You think you know about health, but do we ever really know about health? It's like this insane rabbit hole with like so many specialties for a reason. And so there's so many downsides of the time and energy it can consume, right? And sometimes it's really hard for us to find food. He can travel any in the world and it would be really easy for him. Sometimes it's really hard depending on where I'm going. And my husband says it. He's like, you pick the restaurant. I'm not picky. I'm like, okay. So each one is neutral. Each side has upsides and downsides, right? When we have shame, we're only focused on the downsides. So if you don't start to look and see how the challenges that you've given other people also have upsides to the same degree, we just want balance. Neutrality is, -1 + 1 is 0. We just want neutrality. So if you don't go back and look on how that actually served the individuals that had the challenge, you're going to hold on to that shame and guilt forever. So that's a huge component of clearing our shames and guilt, right? When we think about pride makes us feel like we're better than someone. And by the way, pride is just there to hide your shames and guilts. So if we're walking around and we think we're better than people, we think we know better, we're smarter, we're wiser, we're better looking, all the betters, right? Think about a person who treats you that way. Do you even want to spend time with them? No, we don't even want to be around them. We're like, ugh, like, I just don't want to be around them. Like, they just talk down to me all the time. Like, it just sucks. Like, it's stupid. I don't want it. Right? We don't like that feeling on the receiving end. So if you're a leader and you're going out there and you're all puffed up and you just think you're better than everyone, it's going to be really hard to lead. It genuinely is. But you're so puffed up with pride, you, in those moments, have more upsides than downsides, right? And so even the donation part, like we can look at the donations. There's downsides and upsides. There's upsides to philanthropy, but we often don't look at the downsides, where some of these people who have gotten philanthropic causes. There was one lady who I had the opportunity to interact with, and she had been donating to this small village in Africa for decades. And what she wound up finding out when she started to actually look at the downsides is that the family that she had donated to, the kids had grown up and now none of them were working. They all refused to work. They didn't do anything. And as a result of her donations, they were able to live. And she basically paralyzed them and they refused to work. And they just learned that you don't have to work. You just get things for free. And so that's some of the downsides. We're not actually looking at it. We just think, oh, this is a good cause. I'm just going to give away money, right? So that gives us pride to do something like that. But if you don't look at the downsides, you're not seeing the other side. When you look at the downsides, all of a sudden the pride goes away and you're like, it's just an event, right? Also, the benefit of being a leader and looking at downsides of something that we see only positives to is preparation. So if I know that that person is going to not work, then I know, okay, I'm going to give them food, but I'm going to make them work for it. They have to come and they have to help me distribute. They have to do something with this company that's actually distributing the food, and they have to do some sort of work for us to actually get it. So now that they know, great, you're going to get money, you're going to get food, but you're still working for it. I just gave you a steady job and I gave you a quick job, right? And so it's like, when we look at both sides, it actually prepares us for life. We only want to hold on to that pride when we're perceiving, we have the same, the opposite, right? Like and this is a fun example too, because a lot of times we want to hold on to that pride of even in health, right? That we're so healthy, we're good at this, we're good at that. But then I know if you're very puffed up and proud about how healthy you are, on the back end, there's days that you're missing, there's days that you're cheating, there's things that you're doing that you're really judging yourself for and really hard on yourself for, because no human is perfect, and not realizing that both sides matter. Both sides genuinely matter. Both sides are important. When we think about health too, this is a great example. It's like, if I'm on it all the time, that's not sustainable. I say it to my husband, like, I'll get sick or something and I'll take a day off. And I'm like, yep, I was going a little bit crazy. I was like, it's time to take a day off, and I wasn't paying attention. And then all of a sudden I get sick, and I'm like, well, that's how it served me. It gave me that opportunity. When I'm disconnected in my yoga practice, do you know what happens? Every time I'm disconnected in my yoga practice and I just show up for like a power workout instead of like actually doing yoga and understanding my body, I'm injured. I get injured in some way, shape, or form, not from yoga, from anything else too. But then what that drives me to do, and the benefit of the injury, is it gives me permission to start paying attention to my body again. And then I'm like, oh, I forgot how much I loved this practice for what it truly is. And so we keep labeling all these things as good or bad, good or bad, good or bad, when everything is truly just an event for us. And when we latch on to only bad, we have shame. When we latch on to only good, we have pride, right? So finding the other side of both keeps you in that state of neutrality, and it makes you the most adaptable. Pride also will cause you to seek those certain things. It's almost an addiction. It gives us a dopamine rush, right? So when we have too much pride, we seek that praise to such a degree, we get a dopamine rush out of it. And now all you're doing is seeking praise, seeking praise, seeking praise, right? Not realizing that maybe the criticism you just got was really helpful feedback, because maybe you got a little high on yourself. So it's really seeing those both sides as a leader that makes us adaptable and able to manage ourselves, as opposed to having to like have the outside world manage us on a regular basis.
Struggling to create content? The Health Coach Group offers top-tier done-for-you wellness courses. Save time and focus on what you do best, coaching. Explore our courses at thehealthcoachgroup.com.
So what's a perfect balance? Is it trying your hardest to be the best, but accepting imperfections?
Anything that you're like, priorities, purpose, anything that's around your priorities and purpose, there's no way that you're not going to try to be the best at it, right? There's no way. And there's a level of, if it's important for you to have that accolade, it's to go for it. But it's remembering, like, let's say you want to be the best Olympic athlete. We have the Olympics right now. So you want to be the best Olympic athlete, right? In this certain sport. And then you get there and you are that. Does that mean that you made it? Does that mean that you're like the best of the best? No, you're the best of the best today. The next Olympics, you might not be the best of the best.
So you're
today.
50 and somebody at 20 comes in.
Totally. And now it's like that next step. It's like, well, if I wanted to do this again, how would I train? How would I create it? And you look, even though you won, you're like, still, even though I won, what were my gaps? What can I focus on for the next 4 years to make sure that I'm prepared again? Because if you're humble enough to not just be like, I'm the most amazing person on the planet, you're going to see, even though you won, there's a ton of gaps. There's a ton of missteps. And then you can go back and check and be like, refine, 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 refine. Mastery isn't, I've made it. It's not like I made it, I reached the goal, I'm the best of the best. Mastery is, I got to this one point, but I still can see that along the way, I was just human. And I still see that I'm just human. And if I want to even master this more and really get into it, it's like, what are my next steps? What do I do next? And so that's why we really want to pay attention to that internal persona. You'll notice whenever you feel like you made it, like something will occur and happen that will transition and shift your life, right? You think you make it in relationships, and then all of a sudden you get in a huge fight with your partner, right? You think you made it in, business, and then all of a sudden like huge challenges come in, like to make you pay attention to your business. Because once you think you made it, you stop paying attention to all the little inconsistencies that are actually going on. You think you made it in your job, and then you stop paying attention, right? Whenever we think we made it and we get too puffed up, we stop paying attention to all the bits and pieces that we were paying attention to before that got us there. And just because you make it doesn't mean you're going to stay. So it's like we still want to pay attention to those bits and pieces if you want to stay there. And if you want to expand, then it's more learning, more education. To ever think that there's so much in our society, especially today, that we get to see because, we have access to everything online now. We get to see people worldwide transcending these limitations that we've had in our perceptions for decades. And then someone else is like, man, I never even thought you could do that, And it's like, okay, well, what are you doing to get to that other side? And everyone on this planet, like, there's so much we can transcend. So if we think it's just crazy to think it's crazy to think we made it. Like, it's crazy. It's just crazy. There's so much out there. So the second you get that, it's like, I'm probably pretty proud right now. It's like, okay, like, what am I proud of? What are some of those downsides? Because I'm only seeing upsides, and like, balance yourself before the outside world has to balance you.
There's a lot of people out there with self-doubt, especially the people who are just getting started and haven't really done it to see where they can get to be. How do you get from, can I do this? Or how can I do this? Or will I be able to do this to, I can do this?
So a big component is making sure you have, beyond mindset, get a good strategy, like get a great strategy, right? So if you don't have a strategy to get to where you want to go, if we talk about building wealth, right? If you don't have a strategy to get to where you want to go, you are going to be like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this, right? If you start to but keep asking that question, by the way, don't judge it. Keep asking that question. Because when you ask that question, even if you don't have the answer, it's like your brain keeps subconsciously saying, I want the answer to that. I want the answer to that. And then it starts to look for the answer. And then all of a sudden you'll get an answer, like a piece of the puzzle. And you're like, I could do that. Okay, I have the next step, right? So if you're asking that question, keep asking that question. Don't judge yourself. It's a great thing to get into your subconscious and be like, this is important to you to answer. The other dynamic too is imposter syndrome. So I know that when imposter syndrome comes in, we do create self-doubt. How this works is that what we see on the outside, we perceive we don't have it on the inside, right? So Warren Buffett again, because we were using him. So if I look at Warren Buffett and I can say he's very meticulous with his finances, when I think about him buying that, one breakfast sandwich instead of two, I'm like, he's very meticulous with his finances, right? So he's able to save, right? He's able to save and invest. So he's very meticulous with his finances. And I can go look, if I put him on a pedestal and I say, well, he has that and I don't, so I'm not going to be able to do it. I'll go look and I'll say, well, where are you meticulous with your finances? Where are you sacrificing certain things so that you can save and invest? And I can go look and find it in my life. Imposter syndrome comes in when I say someone else has something that I don't. If someone else has something that I don't, that's imposter syndrome. And then I start to doubt myself. But it's finding it in your own form, in your own life. And then when you see it, it increases the belief in yourself again, because now you realize nothing's missing, right? When we think about an athlete, and it's like an athlete might get up every day and they're like really focused on their physical body and mastering their physical body. And I could say to myself, well, where do I wake up every day and where am I really focused on mastering something, right? I'm not doing it in athletics. I'm doing it in, like, right now, present day, it's mainly business and personal development. So based on my purpose, I'm focused on that area. If I go say an athlete is better than I am because they can do that, I'm just comparing myself to their form when I have my own unique form within. Your unique form of whatever you admire on the outside will be on the inside in your form, not theirs. You're just comparing it to the wrong form. And so we want to ask those questions is, where do I have that thing within? And then all of a sudden, since when you realize nothing's missing, you're like, I got this. I could do this. Nothing's missing. I got this. So that's a really helpful dynamic as well. And again, just make sure to break it down and keep asking the question, how am I going to do it? Because if you don't have a strategy that's clear to get there, you're going to think it's sometimes self-doubt, when sometimes it's like, it's just sitting down and writing a realistic strategy on how to get there and making sure you're implementing it daily.
A business plan would help you. You know, Warren Buffett, again, he always said, I don't invest on anything that I do not understand. And that's true, because he's invested in Borsheim's jewelry. He knew that they were already successful, and he knew that he couldn't miss with that. He invested in McDonald's because he knew that they're all over the place, and Dairy Queen. I mean, that was, I think that he might have done runs. I'm not sure, maybe not, but I know that everything he invested in, I think he finally invested in something techie that he didn't quite understand, but I'm sure he had feelers out on that.
Totally. Or at least someone in his company understood it.
Yeah. That's good. That's really good, having a plan. I had a disagreement with somebody that bought our platinum package, and we have a course where you do your business plan, and we had she didn't think she needed a business plan, and I said, you not only need one business plan, but every time you change your business, you need to have a new business plan. So that when you go to make a decision, you can go there and make a good decision, a wise decision. But that's right, if you have a plan. And when you're setting goals, you always have action steps. If you've got your action steps, set up, that's you're going in the right direction, right?
Yeah, then we know what we're doing every day. I just had a powwow with my partner this morning. My husband and I, we have business together, right? And so we have like a little powwow every morning just for a short period of time. But we know where we're going. We have the action steps, we have the plans. So every day when we have like our mini business powwow, it's just, okay, what worked, what didn't work? Where are we here? Where are we stuck? Do we need any help today? And we just get through it very quickly, and then are able to move forward with the day with a high level priority. Like, what are the highest level priorities? So we can't get that unless you have a proper business plan. It's like, know where you're going, and then you can put together the action steps and priorities to get there, and then making sure you're focused on the top priorities daily. It really is organization and structure. And the more organized and structured you are, the easier the business runs. It takes a little bit of extra time in the beginning, but I know you know this. It is so worth it. It is so worth it. It makes your life so much easier in the long run. And then, just having that structure, even when you update it and change it, because when you redo your business, you redo all that. It's easier because you still have all of those sort of base tools that you put in place, where it's not as hard to make the transition anymore. So that's really important. We talk about mindset, but this is also important. And knowing too, like all of that, one day there's bits and pieces that are going to stop working at a certain point. But that's because as you scale and grow, some of the things that worked in the past don't work in the future. But part of having everything else organized and structured and running smoothly means that when that one little wheel or that nut goes off on the wheel, it doesn't mean the whole wheel has to come off. Right. It's like, okay, we see that nut getting loose. Like, let's just go sort it out, tighten it, re-strategize there, and come back in. And that's all big businesses are doing. And it's like, we can totally apply that to our small business, and that genuinely makes it run more effectively, efficiently, easier, which helps us to just show up every day and be able to do what we love. Yeah, it's really helpful. So I'm 100% business plans and structure. 100%.
Well, I've enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for being with me here today. I like that you used Warren Buffett, because I know a few facts about him. So
I know, I'm glad that worked out. Most
that
people
was
know
fun.
him, but you had some great insight. Yeah, thank you. This was inspiring.
Yeah, and I think that what you have to say is going to be helpful to everybody that listens, and I'm going to make sure that everybody does listen. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you liked what you heard, please give us a 5-star rating or review on iTunes.